Okay. Welcome, everybody. I'm Julie Shepard, and I am the founder of GAMS, National Capital Region Military Spouses. This is our first ever Month of the Military Child live webinar. Every year, we have so many families moving into the region who are looking for information about how to support their military-connected children. And I am thrilled to be here with all these different experts to help you get your questions answered. And for what we can't, we're going to leave questions and answers to the end. There'll be a chance to ask live, and if they can't answer them live, then we'll follow up with you and get you the help that you need. So I want to just take a really brief point of personal privilege and share a little bit about my story. I am a Navy spouse of gasp over 28 years. So you can do the math math on that. I have two adult children who are both in college, and we have transitioned in and out of Fairfax County Public Schools in Northern Virginia multiple times. Most recently, we were down in Virginia Beach and just came back up this August. So I have walked the walk, and I've been out at California as well with kids in high school. And so I understand the challenges. Both of my children are twice exceptional learners, and one of them is profoundly gifted. So I've got a lot of different buckets covered by my personal experience, but it's not all about me tonight. That's why I have these fantastic experts here with us. So if you found your way to this Zoom and you're not sure about what GAMS is, we run an inclusive all hands military spouse Facebook community group. We are over 15,400 members. So one of our moderators here will drop the link in the chat. If you happen to be on the Zoom and you're not in the group, then you can join. So I have a fantastic panel here with us tonight, and I'm thrilled to introduce our first speaker, Meredith Ayala. She is the Family Partnerships Specialist for Military Connected Youth and Families with Fairfax County Public Schools. And I have actually been working with Meredith since I think 2018 when she was at Hayfield Secondary School when my kids were there. So Meredith, thank you so much for always being a strong partner and leading the charge in Northern Virginia and Fairfax County Public Schools for making our schools an inclusive place for military families.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me on this evening. Again, my name is Meredith Ayala. And just to give you a little bit of background as to why I'm in this work and so passionate about this work as well. So I was a military connected youth. My father served 30 years in the Air Force. And so I transitioned to 9 different schools, K through 12. And then I met Julie when I was a school counselor. My husband served in the Marine Corps, and I have a rich family history as well of military. So this work is very close to my heart, and we really work very diligently so that all of our military families feel connected and a sense of belonging within Fairfax County Public Schools. So thank you so much for having me as a part of this evening. So that was a little bit about me. Again, my current role is Family Partnership Specialist for Fairfax County Public Schools, and I'll just take a couple minutes to tell you a little bit about Fairfax County. But while we're doing that, no matter what district you're a part of or whatever district you are maybe joining, many of what I'm going to be saying this evening applies to whatever district you may be joining within the National Capital Region. So if we have those supports, it's very, very possible and most likely that other school districts as well will have similar supports as we go through some of the information this evening. So a little bit about Fairfax County. We know that we have really over 14,000 military connected youth that are enrolled. We have about 180,000 students, so we're sitting at about 8%. We know that there's much more than that when we consider our families of our veterans that are staying in the area, families that have served and are still a part of Fairfax County Public Schools. And we're working diligently to be able to figure out how we can capture those numbers and support those veteran families as well. Currently, we have 69 Purple Star schools. So those are military-friendly schools that are ready and just committed to supporting our military connected youth and our military connected families. We know that the National Capital Region is a very special area with multiple installations and duty stations. And many times that can be a little isolating. So we work very closely with organizations such as GAMS to make sure that we're doing all that we can to hear from our families and learn from them and learn from their experiences and partner in any way that we can. We do have 2 school liaisons at Fort Belvoir that support all of our Fairfax County families. So no matter the branch and the duty station, we have 2 school liaisons that we work very closely with. And we have 2 staff members within Family and School Partnerships. And my colleague is on tonight. So a shout out to Katie Server. She is our military outreach liaison, and her family just retired. And so we're so thrilled that she is with us as well as part to really support our families. We do in Fairfax County have a military connected youth process action team, and that involves folks from our school liaisons, George Mason University. We have families that have joined that team this year, so we can make sure that we hear from our families, as well as strategic folks from around the county, from registration, special education, advanced academic programs, and school counseling, so that we're really looking at all of our processes within Fairfax County so that we can support our families. I am so proud that Dr. Reed, our superintendent, has made a goal of becoming a Purple Star district. We know that Purple Star schools are committed and ready to support the unique life experiences and challenges of our military connected youth and families. So Purple Star schools came about in 2017 in Ohio. 2018, Virginia adopted that Purple Star designation, and Maryland also has a Purple Star designation. So you see some of the requirements. One of the things I would encourage you to do is ask about that Purple Star designation. You know that if you're going to a Purple Star school, that school will have a point of contact for military families. You know that school will have a peer-led transition team, so a team of students that are ready to meet your new student, meet your child, get them connected to that school community. Some of those other things you'll see listed there, including staff professional development. So those schools do have to go through staff professional development so they have an understanding of military culture, and again, how to support our military connected families. Transitional support, so if there's students that are coming in with special education services, that they know as well how to support and partner with those families to make sure those students are receiving comparable services, which is a military compact, and Tashina is here this evening. So we know that transition is as smooth as possible, as well as then you see a district central office staff person. So for Fairfax County, that is myself, who welcomes the opportunity to connect and hear from our military families. So you see, I mentioned our student ambassadors. This really is something that both Katie, my colleague, and I are so passionate about. We know that if our kids are comfortable and have someone to eat lunch with and feel that sense of connectedness within the school, the academic piece and all those things are going to fall into place a little more easily. So we're very passionate about all of our schools having a student ambassador program to welcome those students in and build that inclusive and welcoming culture. Now, as we embrace and really support our families with transitioning in and out of Fairfax County, we work very closely with all of these offices that you see, registration and enrollment, and that includes, you'll see those Virginia codes at the bottom. So that includes following those Virginia codes that allow our military families to register 120 days early if they have those orders, so that they are able to participate in specialty programs, advanced academics, and so on. We work closely with student transfers, advanced academic programs, special education, and our Family Resource Center, and always referring back to supporting our schools with an understanding around the military compact, as well as supporting our families. I'm watching my time, so before I end, and then I'm available for any questions, it is Month of the Military Child, so a shout out to all of our military connected students. We will be turning our district purple on April 17th, which is Virginia's Purple Up Day. So I will conclude there. Thank you so much, Julie, for having me.
Thank you, Meredith. So I'm going to replace the spotlight with myself because I put some polls in here earlier, and we're going to take a little pause before we bring our school liaison officer on, and I'm going to attempt to launch these polls here. And all right, so do you guys see them? All right. Go ahead and answer them. Yes. Okay, perfect. So we'll wait. There's 3 questions. So the first one is about your branch affiliation, and the second one is when are you arriving here? And then the third one is what age group are your children? So, oh, there come the answers are filing in. Does it let me share the results afterwards, Meredith? Have you done these? It does? Okay. All right. So I have a young adult and college age children that are still live at home. Anna, well, I have a 21-year-old at home. So I hear you. And the other one's over at University of Maryland. So, all right. We've got 31 people who answered of the 40. So, um, anybody else want to answer? Okay. If I hit end, it lets me share it. Okay. All right. I'm trusting. Share results. Okay. So can you see the results? Okay. So it looks like we've got 16% Air Force, 45% Army, no surprise with Fort Belvoir next door. Coast Guard, 10%, Marine Corps, 10%, and Navy, 13%, and Space Force, 6%. When are you arriving? Okay, well, it doesn't, I guess I have to click show details. June, July, already here. June, arrived this summer, July, end of May, September, June, been here this time for 14 years. Well, how about that? July, June, already here. And that's just the first page. So it looks like a lot of June and July answers. And then on my phone, I can't figure out how to answer. Sorry about that, Sarah. Elementary school makes up 74%. That's huge. Middle school, 29%, and high school, 26%. So, okay. So I'm going to stop sharing and close that poll out. And I'm going to find Tashina and we're going to give her the spotlight. And I want to thank you, Tashina, for agreeing to be on this call with us tonight. So can you unmute yourself?
Yes, hi. Good evening, everyone.
Um,
Can you hear me?
We can. Let me see if I can. Do you have your camera on or?
Yeah, I don't have it on and I would prefer not to have it
Okay,
on.
that is totally fine. So I'm just going to turn it over to you. So Tashina is the regional school liaison officer for Navy Region Northwest DC region. So did I get that?
So, yeah, for the most part. So, yeah, so my name is Tashina Andrus, and I am the regional school liaison for Northern District, Washington. So I support families and the school liaisons located over in on the naval installations over in Maryland, as well as supporting families over at the Navy Yard. And we also have families that are in over at Dahlgren. So that is King George's County. As families are PCSing in, they're going everywhere. So I make sure I stay closely connected with our school liaisons that are located over in Northern Virginia. So that will push them out sometimes in Loudoun County, Fairfax, Stafford. It'll push them, oh my goodness, Prince William. So there's quite a few of us clustered in all around there. So that's mainly me in the background working and supporting, and the school liaisons in the background trying to tend to families as they're coming in. Are you guys, would you like me to touch on the school liaison program specifically?
That
a little bit more into
that
detail
would
about
be
that?
amazing, especially since we have 74% of this group is elementary school. So it's possible that they haven't PCSed with school age kids before.
Sure, absolutely. So the school liaison program was stood up in 2009. And our role and responsibilities are to be the eyes and ears of our commanding officer in all school related matters. We are the subject matter experts on K through 12 issues. If there is a pre-K program in the local school system, we are knowledgeable about that. We specifically cover 7 core areas. The Navy School Liaisons, 7 core areas are exactly our school transitions. So as you're PCSing or moving in and out the area, upon arrival or during your duration of stay, if you need additional support, we are here for you. It's also command communication, making sure we're communicating with our triad or our leadership on the installation about local school issues so they are aware and they are up to speed on what's taking place and what's impacting our families. There's also navigating special education. So we are not necessarily advocates, but we work very closely with our local school systems. There might be a special education liaison that we will pull in, especially if there's a military family where a very specific case is happening and they want guidance and answers about what's local. We'll tag them in. We also work very closely with the FMP or some of our local support groups, like PTC, for example, that's over here in Virginia. In Maryland, we have Parents Place, which is a wonderful group. They teach families how to be advocates and really go through the special education process, dealing with IEP or 504. In addition to that, we also deal with deployment support. So we work very closely with the deployment specialist that's located either at Army Community Services or the individual that's located at military family. For the Navy school liaisons, they actually have deployment kits that are provided through Anchor for Life, which is a youth sponsorship program. And they actually cover several of those things in the Anchor for Life program that the Purple Star schools are striving to incorporate and have. Trying to think if I missed a few there right off the top. But overall, and I'm trying to think if I missed anything in regards to, there were several that I was rolling right off the top, but overall, those are the main areas that we do support in regards to helping our families. So typically, if you're seeking to talk to your school liaison, we are always placed with child and youth programs. So if you're trying to find us, you're like, hey, I never heard of that program before. If you go onto your MWR website and just pull your child youth education services for the Army or for the Navy child youth programs, your school liaison is located right underneath there. Or you can also go onto the Military Interstate Compact website and there is a map and it will actually say, locate my school liaison. And we are located there. And you can grab our information from there and then we can circle back and start reaching out to you. Hopefully, if you have a really good transition system at your sending installation, your school liaison's name is listed on your military members PCS checkout list. And then from there, your school liaison that's sending you off can get you connected because we like to do a warm handoff. We want definitely for you guys to have a smooth transition all the way around, get you connected, make sure you have the information that you need before you arrive. That way you can make better choices. Here in Maryland and as well as in DC as well, Maryland specifically, where you live dictates where your child will go to school, even though there are flexibilities within some of those school systems. Some parents, that makes them very concerned that they sign that lease or they buy that house and then they find out, I don't like that school system. So we really want to support you so we can avoid some of those hiccups along the way. I see a question. It says, so I would reach out to the school liaison officer at the installation we are stationed at. You absolutely can, because there's information they're going to talk to you about gathering before you go. So some of the stuff that you want to hold on to, don't stick it in your household goods. You want to hang on to your kids' birth certificates. Ask your school system for a unofficial copy of your student's record, because remember when you get to your receiving state, your local school system is going to get the electronic version when they reach out to your local school. Hold on to your school system's registrar for your elementary school. Your registrar is your go-to friend. So you want to hold on to that information, phone number, email, name. It makes it a lot easier when you're moving things in the background. Um, Try to make sure you have an idea of the things that your child likes or wants, because what I'm talking about is like extracurricular activities. If you can share that with us, the school liaison, before you arrive, we can start digging and pulling that information out. Um,
So
but that is a
Tashina,
quick,
can I ask
yeah,
a
go for it.
clarifying question? So she said that her service member is going to be stationed at Fort Belvoir, but they're buying a house or renting a house closer to Quantico. So should she reach out to the Quantico SLO or the Belvoir SLO?
Reach out to both and
Both.
let them be honest. Yeah, just be honest. Like, hey, we're in the process. I had a new command master chief getting ready to PCS, and he let me know, hey, I don't know where I want to live yet. I'm all over the place. Can you give me the information on? I want the information on Montgomery County Public Schools, Charles County Public Schools. I want the information on Stafford, on Fairfax. And I reached out to each one of those school liaisons, and every one of them sent the information saying, hey, this is what's happening with this local school. That way you can decide what's best for you and your family.
We've got another question in here, and I think this is a perfect use of your time. And I think I saw this question earlier, and I thought we answered it in the chat, but it's good for everyone to know. We're moving to the area soon, and I have two high schoolers. We're considering living on JBAB, but I want my daughters to attend school in the Fairfax area. I heard they provide transportation from post to school. Is that true?
Unfortunately, I don't know 100% if that's true, but I know Alonzo Hay, who's the actual school liaison for JBAB, will have better information on that. So if you would not mind just dropping your email in the chat, or if Julie, if you can get that email to me, I will tag Alonzo
Sure,
in.
we can look this up, but my understanding is though that JBAB has a lottery for DC, but that does not include Fairfax. Meredith, you want to speak to that?
Right. Sorry about that. Yep. I was just typing in there. So, in order to attend those Fairfax County public schools, then you would need to live within Fairfax County. So I'm not aware of transportation from JBAB, but you would need to live within Fairfax County.
Thank you. Okay, so I don't see any other. Oh, let's see. Is there another question here? She said thank you. Perfect. So, Tashina, is there anything else you wanted to share about how to prepare? What is good for information for people to be preparing with their records? You shared about that already.
Yeah. So when you also talk to your school liaison as well, we keep a checklist that kind of goes through step by step in regards to your shot records. You want to make sure you're hanging on to those for your kiddos, a copy of your most recent shot record, your most recent physical, talk with your school liaison prior to you going to see if there's any specifications saying that your child has to have their physical specifically on the school form, because sometimes it gets kind of nitpicky. The most part, things are pretty flexible in regards to that. However, you might run into a school system here or there that might give you a little bit of a run. But to summarize it, that's pretty much it. We are a helpful and wonderful resource. Unfortunately, we didn't exist when my father served. I'm a proud Army brat and a former military spouse. My husband served as well. So please utilize us. We are happy to support our military families and continue to make sure you have the most smooth transition as possible. Don't forget, as I think we touched on it, it is Month of the Military Child. Over there in Virginia, you guys are going to purple up on April 17th. And over in Maryland, Northern District, Washington, we're going to be purpling up on April 19th. This is a wonderful time to honor our military kids because they do serve too, supporting their families as, their parent as a PCS from one installation to another, doing, giving a sacrifice that many of people don't realize they give. So by all means, make sure you honor your kids this month. And if you need anything, feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much. So, Lizeth asked a question. Is there a list of school liaisons and is it one liaison for the entire area? So I will help answer some of that. They're usually put at the specific bases. So I know there's 1 to 2 at Fort Belvoir. JBAB has some, and Meredith has shared this link here. Thank you so much. So,
So Julie, I'm going to actually jump on that question real
yeah,
fast. So the
perfect.
school liaison is required to cover a 50-mile radius. So 50 miles out, it can be quite far depending on where you're located. So I was located at NSA Bethesda, and 50 miles out put me in sometimes in Pennsylvania, sometimes in Western Maryland, sometimes in DC. So if there's another school liaison that is within that mileage, we usually work closely with them because we want to make sure our families are getting the best support. So if we're overlapping, they might split up the area and focus more so on certain schools versus the other one. That way there's a close relationship happening there, so our families are getting the best service.
Well, thank you for that clarification. So someone else asked about the Pentagon, and I don't believe they have their own, but they have them at the other surrounding bases, right?
Correct.
Okay. So thank you so much for being here tonight, Tishine. I really appreciate it. Hopefully you can hang with us for a little bit because I'm sure there's going to be more questions coming in the chat. So now it is my honor and pleasure to introduce my friend, Michelle Norman. So Michelle and I have been friends for a little while, and we live down in Virginia Beach together. And she runs this amazing organization called Partners in Promise that helps our military connected children with special needs through the EFMP process. And it's focused on that educational piece. So I'm going to let you take it from here because you can talk more about what you do better than I can. So thank you for your time.
Oh,
And it's always a pleasure having you on. So.
always a pleasure, Julie. Thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you to GAMS. You guys are doing an amazing job there in Northern Virginia area, and so thank you for supporting our military families. First, let me go ahead and share my slides real quick so you guys can follow along. I don't plan on being on this too long. Just because I know we have limited time. But, someone asked a great question earlier about purple. Yes, it is the combination of all the service branch colors. I've got my Purple Up shirts. If you go to our website, we do have those. And particularly, what we do is we really support our military kiddos with disabilities who have special needs that are in special education. So thank you. Navy spouse, very proud. Same like Julie, close to we don't even want to say how many years, but 28, 29 years or so, lived all over the world, we had at least 1 or 2 times in DC, love Fairfax County. So thank you, Meredith and Tashina, for what you guys do out there. We loved our time there and being close to the Pentagon. Currently, we're in the Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads area right now, and we're going to talk a little bit about military families with special needs. So again, Julie said I'm with Partners in Promise, and let me tell you a little about us. We were founded in 2020 by 4 military spouses who all have children with special needs. And we all noticed that we were struggling in really advocating for our kiddos. This highly mobile lifestyle is hard when you do have a special education program because you are moving a lot. And the law, which is a federal, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, is a wonderful protection for our students, and it really kind of lays out the law of the land of what their rights are. But guess what? It's implemented differently in every state that you go to, sometimes within different districts within that state. And so our mission really is to kind of develop data-informed solutions. There was very little data at the time regarding what this highly mobile lifestyle impacted our military families with kids with disabilities. And so we decided to kind of fill in some of those gaps with data. We did a lot of annual surveys, and we'll have another big one next fall, so stay tuned. And then what those recommendations did for us is that we were now able to fill in some of those gaps that might help our families as they move and transition through PCSs. So we educate our families. We have the special needs binders. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We do webinars regarding special education, and we have checklists to help them for their PCSs, and a lot of content that's focused on our website. But we also inform our leaders, we're always looking at the long game. How can we make this easier for our EFMP families to move? And so we take those recommendations, we advise our leaders throughout DOD and Congress to say, hey, here's some areas that we need to focus on. How can we make this a better transition for these families, again, who are serving? And then last, we want to make sure we empower our students. I always say the long goal here is how do we make our children to be independent, productive members of society? They should have the exact same opportunities as their civilian counterparts. So that really is the long game for us to ensure they get standard diplomas and be able to go out into this world and do great things. And so next slide here, I'm going to go ahead and tell you a little bit about my family. So we have 2 children, and it's my daughter that you see here in the first 2 pictures, who really is the inspiration for Partners in Promise. She was a 27-week preemie, 2 pounds, 3 ounces, and has had a lot of challenges over the years, but she is a fighter and just graduated last year with a standard diploma. So we're super excited. It was I would say this is the first time really that, I've had to advocate. It was not something that's natural for me as a military spouse. I'm very respectful of authority, but I learned through the years, I really did have to speak up, not just on the medical side, but on the education side through this lifestyle. And we'll talk a little bit about that because, I was naive. And let's face it, special education is complex. There is a lot to learn about the law. It's a very niched area. It's not like a normal attorney can come in and say, hey, let me tell you about special education. And so I'm not going to go through all of these acronyms that you're seeing in front of you, but just know that there are individualized education programs that deliver that special education for these families. And you have to become eligible for that. There's a process for this. And unfortunately, because we move so often, that can impact, the timing of the eligibility process. So keep that in mind. Also, the 504 plans is considered a special education, although they are under the 504 Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Section 504, and they have a different set of rules. It's a different set for dispute resolution. So we can talk a little bit more about that. That's important to folks. And of course, hopefully many of you guys know about the EFMP program. It is a mandatory program that assists our families with unique medical and educational needs. And they also are able to help with special education as far as helping families understand the law. They have access to special education attorneys. So if you ever find yourself where you may need some additional help, they're there to help you. As in addition to the SLOs, but the EFMP has been mandated to also help in this area. So we're going to go a little bit here and talk about what have we seen in the military lifestyle. Well, we know there are delays. Every time we PCS, there are delays by the time that you get to the new location. We found through our surveys that our families are waiting. Okay, so they're waiting approximately 5.75 months to get their special education services in place that are in that IEP that they transferred in with. And again, it could be anything from that one-on-one aid. It could be a special education transportation like a bus. But this is what our families are reporting to us. And we see it also on the medical side. I know a lot of us see specialty providers, it's those developmental, pediatricians, an ABA therapist. It's a shortage across the nation. But we are seeing that, and that is impacting the continuity of care for our families. And what also we're seeing from some of our data is that there's sometimes not always agreement when you get to the IEP table. And so this is something that we kind of been hammering a lot lately. It's like, hey, you need to make sure that IEP really aligns with the long-term educational goals that you have for your child. And every time you get to that IEP table, especially with the new team at the beginning of the year, I tell our families, make sure you sit down with them, take a look at this program and say, this is where I want my child to be. I expect them to get to high school, to get a high school diploma, to be able to get a job, go to college, or maybe this year, our long-term educational goals is just for them to develop social skills, whatever it could be. But make sure that that is very clear because that sets the tone for how you start the new school year. And so let's talk a little bit about that, and I know that those of you that are at EFMP probably have some way of collecting those documents because guess what? They are legal documents. And so we need to ensure that they're safe because these are things that you are going to perhaps need in the future. And so we recognized that people need to be organized. When you're organized, you guess what? You can advocate better for your child And everything needs to be documented. I always say document, 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 because as we age, we don't remember all the details very much. And so it's really important to keep everything in a safe place. Hand carry it. I know a lot of you guys may be younger than me and put everything on like a laptop. I get it. But there are times where you actually want to make sure you have a physical copy of things. And we can maybe talk about that later on if a question comes up about it. But I'm thinking in my head about work samples and how that may be something you can bring to the IEP table. That's not something easy that you can kind of get a laptop and say, well, look at this work sample. And again, the whole idea, prepare them for life after school, and make sure they have lots of post-secondary opportunities. Let me tell you real quick about these binders. We have 4 unique ones. One is for special education EFMP. The other one's for 504 in EFMP. And then you have those who are just EFMP families that maybe have a medical diagnosis. And we also have a binder for those who are adults. And so what's included in these binders, that it's free and it's downloadable at our website at thepromiseact.org/binders. You basically can learn about what the rights are. We have a top 14 Bill of Rights that kind of helps you understand every year what you need to remember when you get to the IEP team table so that you can ensure that your child is getting the services and supports that they need. We also have ABCs of special education, which is a great dictionary. Lots of jargon, just like military, but we have it for military. We have legal for special ed. Resources are all in there. But pay attention to that tab 1. It talks about our school registration. Super important before you leave the school to have your current teacher write a letter for the new IEP team. Not everything always gets into that IEP as far as the nuances. Like for instance, maybe, the teacher does something like, hey, when she walks up to a child that maybe is getting frustrated, maybe just like a little tap on the shoulder or, maybe a special word that they're saying. Sometimes that doesn't always make it to the IEP. So make sure that current teacher writes about, hey, I had Miss Susie, in my class this year, she was great. I put her next to another person who was really strong in XYZ. And I noticed these strategies kind of help. Those are type of things that will help the new IEPT understand your child and help them, with their services. Letter template, sometimes you may not know how to ask for an IEP meeting. Maybe you don't know how to ask for evaluations. We have all these templates in these binders and, of course, resources for our families. So I really recommend getting a binder. I don't care how you put it, if it's on laptop or whatever, but please, please, you need one of these so that you can have all your documents in one place. And this is kind of what the checklist looks like on the inside. We do have a YouTube video that kind of goes over some of this as well. And again, when you get to the IEP team table, make sure you understand, what your long-term educational goals for your child and that they're participating in standardized testing, super important. We found in our survey that a lot of our families are not going and taking that standardized testing. And why does that matter? Because we don't know where they fall in relation to their peers. And then how do you know what the areas of regression or what areas they need support in? So definitely make sure that they're participating in those standardized tests. And come visit us at our website. That's where you'll find our binder. You'll get to, subscribe to our newsletter and learn all about the resources. We also have consults for parents. You can see that also on our website as well. And you can check out some of our QR codes. And so just don't forget, that the EFMP office is there to help you. There's a new DoDI that came out in June 23 that basically helps standardize this warm handoff, similar to what the gals were saying earlier. So if you go into your EFMP office now and say, I am moving to California in 2 months, if you fill out, and this is all voluntary, by the way, so it's important for you to know that you go when you can fill out a family needs assessment, and that office will actually contact the Gaining Installations EFMP office, and they'll be able to give them some information about you and what you may need at that at the next location. For instance, it could be that you need to get on the wait list for respite care. Very important, because there's always a wait list for respite care. So they could maybe start that process. Perhaps ADA housing, that's also important. Get on that wait list, but this can be facilitated through that EFMP office. They are a great, great resource. I recommend you guys to really look into that and ensure if you have any problems, go to them because they can help. And I hope that's it. So let me see if there's anything. Is there anything in the chat that I can help with?
People are filling out the survey and dropping the link in the chat all while you're talking and saying thank you. So And I'm going to
That's great.
reiterate that thank you. And hopefully you can hang here with us for the rest of the duration. I appreciate your time, Michelle. And now
Oh, you're
I'm
welcome.
going to go ahead and introduce our next speaker. And let's see, can I do the replace pin? Yay! So Natalie Mack is also another friend of mine. Funny enough how that all works out when you're in the service together for a very long time, right? Supporting our spouses. So Natalie is a local spouse and she's been doing work in the homeschool community. So oftentimes, we think about just the brick and mortar schools, right? But homeschooling is a really good solution for a lot of military families because of our transient lifestyle. So I am really pleased that you're here and giving up your time to talk about how a little bit about your story. And I'm just going to say we're running a little over time. So I just want to make sure that we can get to the rest of our speakers in our Q&A at the end. So Natalie, thank you. And I'm going to let you take it away.
Okay, thank you so much, Julie. I'm really excited to be here, and so I'm going to go pretty quickly. And so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, of course, this is not what it should be. Sorry about that. Okay, don't know why. Add it up, and there we are. Sorry, you have to see a little bit of something, but it is what it is. Hold on one second. Technology works when it works, and then it doesn't. Okay, here we are. Can you see now? Hopefully. Okay, sorry about
Yes,
that,
we can see
everybody.
it. It looks
You,
beautiful.
you got to see a little bit of Southwest travel plans on the screen there. So we're going to be talking just real quickly about homeschooling in the DMV, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. And first, I just wanted to talk a little bit about myself real quickly. And I know that a lot of times families want to know a little bit more about your family, right? And what you have been doing. And so I am not sure where my screen's going. So you have my husband who's retired Navy chaplain, 34 years of service. And so we have 5 kiddos because you can count there. And so this is an older picture. So they are several years older, but you see me seated there in a chair. And so I will start with the 2 girls. The one to the left behind me, she is our oldest daughter, and she is an IB coordinator for DC Public Schools. She's fluent in Mandarin, and she has her master's in international education. To the right of my husband is our youngest daughter, who was a D1 soccer player. So we went through that whole NCAA process. She is now a licensed clinical social worker. And then if we look at the boys to the far left, that's our oldest son, even though he's a little bit shorter than the middle son. But he graduated from American University School of International Service, and he is an entrepreneur. And then to the right of him, the tallest one, which is to the left of our oldest daughter, he is graduating in May. So next month, he's finishing at George Mason University Honors College. Just got accepted to graduate program at Virginia Tech for urban planning. And then the youngest one in the mint green, who's much taller than that and taller than me now, he is 11th grade, and he is loving soccer, Boy Scouts, working on Eagle, and Distinguished Conservation Service Award. So these are my babies. We've been homeschooling for 23 years. Uh, I am a TEDx speaker, and we have loved the whole journey of homeschooling. So let me just show you a little bit about our journey. So, like most military families, lived all over the world, right? And have had lots of different experiences. Mine has been primarily in the military homeschool experience, a whole life. And so, as a result, I recently founded a nonprofit, Military Homeschoolers Association, and I'm launching a podcast. I'll tell you about that a little bit. But let's talk about homeschooling in the DMV, and also the whole fact that a lot of times people will say, well, in military communities, homeschooling has always been a choice, which is actually a fact. But what we're seeing is that it is increasingly a choice. And out of the Blue Star Family Survey, even back in 2021, it was 13%. Now, I've done research with the US Census, and we have about 32 million families with school age children. And the national average is 8% for homeschooling, and for in the military community is 16%. So it's even higher than what Blue Star's voluntary survey has gathered. Now we know about 52% want to stabilize their children's academic experience, right? 36% say, I want time flexibility to spend together as a family, when there's time off, right? Or active deployments to be able to just bond a bit. And others are talking about school options, which is what we're talking about tonight. And so about 35% move to locations where they find that the school system there, the local school system, won't meet their needs. And so they find themselves choosing the homeschooling path. And so when we're talking about homeschooling in Virginia, there are three options. Okay, number one option, not in any particular order necessarily, is the Virginia Home Instruction Statute. Basically, you file a notice of intent and it goes through your local superintendent. The notification of intent is not asking permission to homeschool. It is truly just a notification. It's just letting the school district know that your student is going to be homeschooled. So the student isn't not considered truant, all right? And so the next option is the certified tutor statute, where if you have a license, if you're a licensed teacher, then you have the ability to file under option 2 to homeschool your children. And finally, there's a third option in Virginia, and that is what we call the religious exemption statute. And those are those families who have sincere religious objection and that they have said that they would not choose to place their student in a public school environment. So that is pretty much, and you have to go through a process. You can't just say, oh, I think right now this is good for me based on my religious beliefs. It has to be some statements and documentation to that. And so the next option is we're going to talk about Washington, D.C. Mainly, you maintain a portfolio. You don't even have to submit it unless you are asked to submit it. And then if you are deciding to homeschool, then they just want you to file a notification of intent 15 days before homeschooling. So say if you're pulling a child out of traditional school in any of these areas, then you do want to notify the school district that you are doing that. And so that they can say that your student is accounted for, right? That's the best way to handle this. And then if you plan to continue homeschooling the next year, by August 15th, you need to submit the notification of homeschool continuation, just letting DC know that you are going to continue homeschooling. Now, Maryland, there are 4 options. So you see, the law is different in every state, and that's what makes it a little bit challenging for military families continually moving around. Is just when you get comfortable, knowledgeable about what your requirements are in one state, you get orders somewhere else. And so part of that challenge, and what I always say is do your due diligence to make sure you know what the law is where you are. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But in Maryland, the 4 options are you have to maintain a portfolio, and then you meet once a year with a school district person to go over that portfolio. That's just evidence that your student is accomplishing and meeting benchmarks. You have the church umbrella option, which is an umbrella school that is sponsored by a church, where that school can keep your records for you, produce a transcript for your student when that time comes, and just basically helps you stay on track to some degree. Option 3 is church exempt school umbrella, meaning it's not really a church umbrella program, but it does the same thing as the church umbrella, which means it can come alongside you, help you maintain documentation, provide that transcript. And then the state approved school umbrella program, which is obviously a school program that the state has approved. And so those are the main ways between Virginia, DC, and Maryland for homeschooling. Now, a lot of times families will say, can't we just go by our home of record? So you hear that HOR so much in the military, and it would make sense to many people that that would be the law. But unfortunately, because education is governed by the state gets to decide what they require of homeschoolers, what the law needs to be. That is something that one day maybe will change. Those who live in New York as their home of record, for example, may not want it to change because New York is a very strict state in terms of homeschooling. So there's some advantages to not being tied to home of record for some people that live in states such as New York, which I do love, but it is the law there. So how do you know where and what you should go by and what law? It is based on where you physically lay your head at night. That's what I always say. Where you physically sleep, where your children reside, has nothing to do with your home of record. And if you're there 30 days or more in that particular state, then you are expected to follow the law for that state. So if you're just shy of that and you are RV schooling rather, or you are accompanying someone on TDY and you're going to be moving, then you have a little bit more leeway. But generally, about 30 days or more, you should be looking at notifying the state that you're going to be homeschooling. Now, if you're going overseas, it is a completely different situation because if you're going to an overseas location that is under SOFA, then you have so many liberties. You don't have to follow any state laws at all. But since we're talking about coming into the DMV, I won't cover any more about going overseas. And the last thing is educational tools and resources. School liaison was just speaking. I'm a big advocate of connecting homeschoolers with the school liaison because we are a community that the school liaison serves as well. Also, make sure you know that DOD has an MWR online library. Also, if you're looking for curriculum discounts, many curriculum providers do offer discounts for military homeschoolers. So you would want to contact me, or you can actually go to hslda.org. I have a page there for military families. If you scroll down, we have discounts that curriculum providers do offer. Also, get plugged into your state homeschool organization. Washington, D.C. does not have one, but Virginia has two. One is Home Educators Association of Virginia, which is a faith-based organization. The other is Virginia Homeschoolers, which is a secular organization. And Maryland has one, which is MACHI, okay, Maryland Association of Christian Home Educators. Those are the orgs that are doing the work lobbying to maintain freedoms for us as military families moving from one state to the other. So they depend upon membership and donor support. So do consider joining them so you can stay abreast of the laws in the state that you live in. And finally, I did mention coming soon, base-to-base military homeschooling. So this will be an opportunity for me to interview guests at different locations around the world, and they can talk about what it's like to homeschool at Fort Hood. What is it like to homeschool Fort Belvoir? What is it like to homeschool in Ramstein in Germany, right, at the Air Force Base there? And you can get all your questions answered. And then finally, if you want to stay in contact with me and if you want to scan my QR code, this is my homeschool Natalie Mack, and you can make contact with me. And I would love to help you out. And I'll be here later if you have any questions. I think that wrapped it up. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing because I know we have, I think, one or two more, right, Julie?
Yes, we have one more. So would you mind answering this one question before we go on to the next speaker? Do you know if Virginia Public Schools just, okay, was this about homeschool records? Okay. Want the previous year's records, or will I need to provide old 2020 to 2022 homeschool records as well?
Did you say public school though, or you reading? You were saying
I'm confused about this question. Michelle
okay,
answered it, but do you know if Virginia Public Schools want just the previous year's record, or will I need to provide my old 2020 to 2022 homeschool records as well?
Okay, so I'm going to interpret that means that when I mentioned that you have to notify through the school superintendent, maybe that's what that's in reference to. So no, the states don't ask for previous homeschool records. That's something that you want to do your due diligence to keep for your own personal records, but the states don't. So once you move into the state, you are then under that particular state requirements, but they don't go back and ask for what you did previous to that. So
Well,
hopefully that answered that question. If
hopefully.
not
And if we didn't, then
yeah,
they can reach out to us. So.
Right.
Okay. Thank you so much, Natalie. And
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate you engaging in the chat and answering people's questions in our embedded chat with the group. So
you're welcome.
So now it's my pleasure to introduce my new friend, Monique Womack. She is the Vice President of family engagement for the Virginia PTA. And Virginia PTA has been engaged for a while with military families, and they have some really great resources as well. So I'm going to find, where's Monique? Here we are. So add a pin. All right, replace the pin. I'm getting, as the night goes on, I'm getting more tech challenged. So Monique, thank you for being here. And she's also a Navy spouse, but I did met her recently. So I'll let you go ahead and share what you want to say.
Thanks, Julie. I'll make it quick due to time restraints. Like Julie said, my name is Monique Womack. I'm the Vice President of Family Engagement for the Virginia PTA. We're the oldest, largest child advocacy group in the United States. Here in the Commonwealth, we are 120,000 members. And we give the opportunity to every child and family to engage in their education and their needs. Especially I am in the twilight months of my husband's career. We will be retiring at the end of June. I've been fortunate enough to be here in Hampton Roads for the last 10 years and 5 years before at the beginning of his career. So I've been here for a while, but we had a child in middle school, and I started my PTA journey and halfway through his military career, and it has given me my own identity and a community that is unspeakably large. I have friends all over the Commonwealth now because of the organization and the resources that have been provided to me through the PTA. At a local unit, we work very closely with the guidance counselors, our military liaisons for every district, and we also are hosting family engagement events throughout the year, either STEM-based or arts-based, or in April, we have all of our units will be doing something around April 17th that is for Purple Up Day, but that is per unit. So I would watch our Facebook page because we will be shouting out all of the awesome units who are doing incredible work across the Commonwealth. I would like to touch on something that Michelle said, and that was the testing and the SOL testing here in Virginia. The Virginia PTA is advocating for the results of those tests to be able to be read by a layman and translated out across to other states. So that way, when the child takes the test and you have the score here in Virginia, you can take that to California or Rhode Island or Massachusetts, and that will translate for you. That is a big advocacy point for us every year, and we do have support within the House of Delegates for that. So stay tuned. All of our advocacy work is on our website. All of our military resources and who we work with through the Virginia Department of Education is on our website as well. I will tag that in the chat so you can check that out. But I will keep within time restraints. Thanks, Julie, for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And I want to give you one more opportunity to share something, because this is something that comes up a lot when we have our military families. They join our Facebook group and they're looking for, how do I find out information about the school? And we do a good job, I think, of directing them to the school quality report card for the state of Virginia. We share the link for DC and for Maryland, but I like to give the plug to the PTA because we tell people to get firsthand accounts. So what do you have to say about that? So how do they reach their local schools if they're not there yet and they want to talk to the PTA leadership at that school?
So if you know where you will be stationed and where you plan on having your child attend school, honestly, I would say reach out to their Facebook page. We are very social media present. A lot of our units are on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If you can't find them through any of them, I would reach out to us here at VA PTA and we will get you in touch with them directly. Jenna, our PTA president, is dropping all of the resources into the chat. The first one is directly to our military page for all of our resources through the VDOE. And then the report cards that you were talking about, Julie, you can access right there through the schoolquality.virginia.gov page. But I would, if you're looking for information on the school PTA, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter.
Thank you so much, Monique, for being here and being the icing on our cake for the evening. I think that was a perfect way to get to the end of this. And I'd like to be able to allow people to ask questions in the chat as well. So we can take a few personal privilege to go over a few minutes if you guys have questions that haven't been answered in the chat. I'm gonna add a pin to myself here. So it looks like, Meredith, you got asked questions about the MIC3. So do you want to come on and talk about that a little bit?
Well, I just, and hearing Monique talk about the advocacy, the important advocacy work that the Virginia PTA is doing around those SOLs and exit exams. So I did put a link in there as far as the Military Compact does support those exit exams and end of course exams being accepted by the receiving state from the sending state. So if schools or families need any support with the MIC3, our school liaisons are MIC3 experts, and then also myself and Katie Server, as far as Fairfax County, we support our schools and our families with MIC3 questions as well.
Awesome. Tashina, we have a question in here about the JBAB DC lottery. Are you able to answer that?
So I was actually going to drop Alonso's contact information into the chat for you because trying to explain the lottery for you is a little complex because I pulled everything and I have it in front of me in regards to it. It's just basically in DC, you have the opportunity to select the schools that you want your child to attend. There is a whole website selected for it where you can go on and drop the information in there that you want, apply, and send it out. But as far as like the real specifics, when you get into the nitty gritty about deadlines, when should you get results, how's that going to come back? That's really like a sidebar conversation because we can have that conversation for like 35 minutes. So I want to go ahead and put Alonso's contact information in there for you. That way you can have a conversation with him directly. If you, for any reason you don't catch him, which would be very unusual, feel free to reach out to me. So I'm putting that information in there now and that can assist you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, we've got another question here. I think Meredith, you can help me with this one, at least for FCPS. How do kids get tested for accelerated schools when moving into the area if they've never been tested before? So do you want to tell us what school district you're in, Elizabeth? You can drop it in the chat if you know. Unless you don't know where you're living yet, in which case the answer may vary. So Meredith, you put it in there, but do you want to put it on record, like what we do here in Fairfax?
Sure. So I was trying to look up, I'm trying to grab the website. So our advanced academic programs has a very succinct website. Now, as far as if you're joining and you've had your child has had ability testing already or have not, if they have not, then they can absolutely participate in the next screening cycle. And we can talk, and feel free to drop me an email. And we can talk through what that might look like. Again, either contacting myself or thank you. Yeah, and there's one that AAP did as well that it just really walks through it very, very clearly. But you can jump in on the next screening cycle, and we can also just talk through what those dates would look like, because we do want to make sure that those, your children are having a smooth transition and not having to have multiple transitions. So we can talk through what that might look like for you.
So yeah, so basically if your children haven't been identified yet, then you would get into the whichever school division you're going to, and they will work through this process with you. So if your children are already identified where they are, then that's covered by the MIC3, and you're supposed to get like placement, but then the school division retains the right to retest when you get there. So that's across the board. Okay. Are the language programs at the different Fairfax elementary schools part of the standard day school, or is it a special application? So there's two programs in Fairfax County for language. There is a kind of like a period, which they call FLES, which is foreign language for elementary schools. And then there's a lottery system. And so Meredith can talk about that lottery system.
Yeah, so there is a lottery system for the immersion programs, and there is a deadline for that lottery. But again, this is where we really try and work with our military families. There is a deadline for that to jump into that lottery, but again, reach out to us so we can connect with world languages and kind of talk through what that might look like, depending on when you get your PCS orders to join Fairfax County.
Awesome. Are there any questions that I didn't get to that I missed somehow in here? Because they were maybe popping when people were talking. I think I got everything. Is there anything anyone else wants to ask? You can also ask us in the chat in the group as well. Okay, we talked about Purple Up Day. Yes, I have my purple t-shirt on too. So I just haven't gotten my other one yet. I'm still waiting. Okay. Any advice for starting kids later than the first day of school due to orders being late? So Meredith, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, I would love to. So that really, I would look for, as a former school counselor, I would definitely connect with the school counselor. School counselors are really the heart of the school and really want to get those students connected and ask about those peer-led transition programs. So ask what supports are available for new students. We're able to, in many cases, connect students prior to that first day, maybe if they need a tour of the school or to meet, just connect with a student prior to that first day. But I would definitely ask, if you're not sure who to reach out to, you can reach out to, if it's a Purple Star school, you can reach out to that point of contact. And you can reach out to a school counselor as well, would be a great place to start.
Yeah, that's a great question. And not everyone gets the benefit of PCSing in the summer, right? So it's definitely difficult. Any advice for being prepared for our next PCS as a parent of a kindergartner starting in the fall, expecting to PCS after 3 years? So maybe the child doesn't remember ever PCSing and they're getting ready to move into the kindergarten space. So what do you think about that? Advice for getting ready to PCS with an incoming kindergartner.
So I'll take that one. So if you're getting ready to PCS with your kindergartner, and they haven't experienced being in a school setting yet, start talking to them about the school. There's plenty of little books about my first day of school. Encourage them to participate in the whole entire getting ready for school experience, like picking out their outfit, picking a book bag, talking about being with their teacher, kind of talking about different things that they're going to expect, getting ready to go to the new school. And that'll take away some of those little bit of a jitters of being a kindergartner entering school for the first time. Just make sure you're communicating with your school too about the cutoff date. The Military Interstate Compact covers students in regards to the age difference. For example, I had a student that PCS from New York. The student was turning 5 after the cutoff date, but the student had started kindergarten in her sending state. When they arrived here, they were still the age of 4. Due to the Military Interstate Compact, the student was allowed to continue on to kindergarten because they started school at their sending state. So make sure you're just aware of what your cutoff is for your student, age date, as far as your birth date for your student, and your school's aware, and you have a better idea of what to expect before you arrive.
Thank you so much, Tashina. I appreciate that. All right. Is there anything we need to make sure that happens during those 3 years while we're here before we get ready for the next one? So, okay. So there's lots of stuff that's going to happen, and just being on here and getting aware to what is going on in this military connected kids space is step one, right? And I think this was shared earlier, but familiarize yourself with the MIC3, the Military Interstate Compact, and you're going to get to feel more comfortable as you enter into the school space and learn from others. Okay, my children currently attend a private school and haven't been tested for advanced placement, but would probably qualify. How do we go about getting them tested at our current duty station before we PCS? So I would suggest that you reach out to your school and ask them about that. Or you can reach out to, I mean, if you're coming to Fairfax County, you can reach out to the Advanced Academic Placement Office, which was shared, that information was shared in the chat. So it's a little trickier if you don't already have that, because that's not covered under the MIC3 if you're not already identified. Okay, let's see here. Anything extra that we need to do if we are PCSing from overseas? We're currently in Japan in kindergarten in a Dodea school. Is Tashina still on? I'm not sure. Meredith, do you want to help?
I am still on, but Meredith, you could take it. I was actually sending a chat to Miss Thomas for her kiddo going to Japan.
Thank you.
And I was responding as well. So I'm so sorry I was responding to an individual message. Which one? Julie's? We're moving to Fairfax?
No, it was
no.
the one about moving from the Dodea school. Is there anything special they need to do?
You know, we work very closely with Dodea, so I wouldn't say that there's necessarily anything special. I mean, I think that, I mean, Michelle touched on it as well. You know, having those hand carry those records with you. Our high schools are very familiar with Dodea schools as well. So just having all of those records with you when you go to register, but there's not anything really specific as far as transferring from Dodea to, for example, to Fairfax County, as long as you have all those educational records with you.
Perfect. All right. And Julie has a great question in the chat here, and this gets asked in the group often. We're moving to Fairfax County this summer. If we find a house and the high school does not offer AP classes, but offers IB programs, is it possible to transfer to another school that does offer AP courses? So there is a pupil placement process in Fairfax County Public Schools, and that is one of the things that you can apply for. You do have to pay a fee, and you have to provide your own transportation. Now, the warning with this is not all high schools are open to new transfers. So if you need help with that, that's when you contact Meredith directly, and she can help you figure out what that looks like. So in my case, we're zoned for Hayfield Secondary School, which has AP programming. And the three other nearby schools happen to have IB. So that's Lewis and Edison and Mount Vernon. But Edison is closed to new enrollment, so I could not go the reverse way, right? But anyway, it just depends on where you live, but that's why you're going to need Meredith to help you navigate that situation. So, okay, and Natalie shares that the MIC3 does not cover homeschooling situations for high school and switching back and forth. So that's helpful. Okay, so it looks like we've got everything covered in the chat here. I think everyone has everyone's contact information. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and stop the sharing. I can leave this open if there's other people that still need to work in the chat and get their things answered. But again, I thank you so much for everyone being here and all of your time, and I really appreciate it, and hopefully we can do something again in the future. All right, stop the recording.